Good morning all. Today we'll see about congestion control and congestion avoidance mechanisms. Already we have seen the reason for congestion to occur in case of TCP. Before going into congestion, we'll see about data traffic. The main focus of congestion control and quality of service is data traffic. In congestion control, we try to avoid traffic congestion. In quality of service, we try to create an appropriate environment for the traffic. So, before talking about congestion control and quality of service, we'll discuss about data traffic. We have seen about various network performance characteristics. If we say average data rate, then it is the amount of data or time. Yes, so the average bandwidth. Sometimes you can transmit with the 5 Mbps, sometime 10 Mbps. So over a unit of time, how much you transmit. Yes, so the average of the data rate gives you the average data rate. Peak data rate, suppose you take some 20 seconds. What is the peak traffic rate you had transmitted? Suppose you had transmitted 50 Mbps during 10 seconds, and the peak data rate will be 50 Mbps. Other times during this 20 seconds itself, sometimes you would have transmitted at 10 Mbps, sometimes at 50, sometimes at 20. The peak data rate is 50 Mbps. How much time you are transmitted with 50 Mbps. That is called as maximum burst size. Maximum length of time the traffic is at the peak rate. Effective bandwidth that the network needs to allocate for flow of traffic. So that is called as effective bandwidth. You can see the traffic profile here. You can calculate the average data rate by calculating the average of the data rate transmitted over a period of time. You can see peak data rate, the maximum data rate with which you had transmitted, and the maximum duration with which you had transmitted. It is called as the maximum burst size. We shall see about various traffic profiles. There are three types of traffic profiles, namely constant bitrate or CBR, variable bitrate or VBR, and bursty traffic. In case of CBR, it is the data is getting transmitted at a fixed rate. In case of VBR, the rate of flow or change is different, and in case of bursty traffic, the data rate will change suddenly within a very short time. In case of CBR, if you see, the average and peak will be same. In case of VBR, it will be different. In case of bursty, it is very different. If you take different types of applications such as audio, video, and data traffic, usually it is very bursty, periodic, but it will be regular. If you take audio traffic, it will be continuous and periodic. If you take video traffic, it will be continuous, bursty, and periodic as well. The audio traffic, it is of CBR type, and video traffic, it is of VBR traffic. If you take a news channel, sometimes data traffic will be there, sometime a video will be displayed, sometime a audio will be displayed, sometime some graphic images will be displayed. So over a period of time, the rate of traffic will differ rapidly. So depending upon the application, you should choose the exact traffic profile. You can see the traffic profiles. So in constant bitrate, over a period of time, the data traffic is transmitted at say some 10 Mbps, whereas in variable bitrate, it varies from 0 Mbps, 5 Mbps, 10 Mbps, and again some 7 Mbps. If you see bursty traffic, for certain time there is high traffic, for certain time there is no traffic at all, and for certain time there is low traffic. What is congestion? So you have a specific bandwidth capacity. You cannot increase the bandwidth capacity, be it a wireless channel or wired channel, guided or unguided medium. It is not possible for you to increase the bandwidth capacity. The resources are also limited at the sender and receiver side. So if the bandwidth and the data you traffic exceeds the bandwidth capacity, then it leads to congestion, and because of congestion there is loss of packet. So you have to deal with congestion. If you see a router, we have seen, as in case of multi-homed host, there will be number of interface. Each interface will be having an IP address, and for each of the interface you will be having the physical port. Remember the logical port which we talked while talking about the socket. It includes the IP address and the port number which has been assigned for each of the process. What we see here is the physical port available through which the data enters or leaves a system. So for every port available, there is a input queue and an output queue. Whatever data arrives will be stored in the input queue, and whatever the data has to be sent out will be stored in the output queue. If the input or output queue is full, then it will lead to loss of packet, which is also because of congestion, because the bandwidth already is full and it is not able to take your packets or deliver your packets. So that is the reason for congestion. So we have to control the congestion. How to do it? We can do it in two ways. Either you can prevent congestion, or once the congestion occurs, you will be able to remove the congestion. So the mechanisms that are used to prevent congestion are called as open loop congestion control algorithms, and the techniques which you use to remove congestion, you call it as closed loop congestion control. These are some of the open loop congestion control mechanisms: retransmission policy, window policy, acknowledgement policy, discarding policy, and admission policy. All of these we have seen during discussion of flow control in transport layer, wherein you fix the size of the window. Okay? So how the sender has to adjust its window depending upon the size of the receiver window and the congestion window. What is the retransmission policy? Like it starts a timer and waits until the timer expires. Yes. So what is the acknowledgement policy? So the acknowledgement number is the number of the next segment or byte expected. Yes, so the acknowledgement in case of receiver will be the next segment expected. Discarding policy. Suppose there is congestion and some of the packets has to be dropped. What is the policy to adapt? Whether to discard any packet or to identify the low priority packet and then drop it. What is the admission policy? If suppose one of you has say all of you have some account with Airtel, and one of you have paid more and you have claimed for 100 Mbps. So another they have claimed for some 10 Mbps. So what is the admission policy? When both of you make a request, it is decided based upon the admission policy agreed upon earlier. So all these open loop mechanisms are the mechanisms which are used as a preventive mechanism in order to avoid congestion. Whereas when you consider closed loop mechanism, though you take all measures in open loop mechanism to avoid congestion, due to the natural characteristic, congestion will occur, packet drop will occur. So you go for some closed loop mechanisms such as back pressure, choke packet, implicit signaling, and explicit signaling. We'll see about certain closed loop mechanism. The first one is back pressure. As the name indicates, in case of back pressure, the pressure is sent from the destination to the previous node. That node sends the information to the node before it, so on and so forth until it reaches the source. So how this back pressure mechanism works? The then whichever node that has identified congestion will set one bit in the packet and then will send it to the node before it. Yes. So as the name indicates, there is some pressure in the backward direction. If you can see this diagram, the node that has detected congestion sends a signal to the node which has sent the packet to itself. Yes. So similarly, this pressure is transmitted in backward direction until it reaches the source, and finally the source takes some step to reduce the congestion. And in case of choke packet, we have seen about ICMP protocol. ICMP is the Internet Control Message Protocol, which is used to identify or rectify the errors. One such ICMP packet is called as ICMP source quench. Quench is reducing. So reducing the rate of transmission. Whenever a node detects that there is a congestion, it will construct a choke packet and send it directly to the source. Yes, the difference between back pressure and choke packet is, in case of back pressure, the congestion detected node will send the information to the node which has sent the packet to it, and so on and so forth till it reaches the source. But in case of source quench, the congestion detected node will construct a new packet called as ICMP source quench packet, and this packet will have the source address as the congestion detected node and destination address as the source, and directly it will be transmitted as any other data packet. That's the difference between choke packet and back pressure. The next is implicit congestion signaling. In implicit congestion signaling, we don't send an explicit message at all to the source. We have seen in TCP that in any loss of packet or non-receipt of acknowledgement is considered as because of congestion by transport layer. So whenever there is loss of packet, TCP interprets that it is because of congestion, and therefore it does the necessary modification to reduce the rate at which it is transmitting. That is called as implicit congestion signaling. We saw also the fast retransmission mechanism. The receiver will send continuous 3 acknowledgements to the sender whenever it is lost, so that you don't send any explicit, but the sender somehow understands that there is congestion. Okay. In explicit congestion signaling, explicit messages or bit is sent either in forward direction or in the reverse direction to the source. If the explicit signaling is in forward direction, the node that detects the congestion will send the congestion information to the destination. In turn, the destination will change the receiver window size, thereby communicating to the source that there is congestion. In case of backward signaling, the node that has detected the congestion will send explicit signaling message directly to the source, as we have seen in the back pressure or choke method. So the difference between implicit and explicit signaling is that in case of implicit, there is no direct communication between congestion node and source. Whereas in explicit, directly the congestion node takes steps to inform the source. In case of implicit signaling, the source understands because of the characteristic that there has been congestion and takes the remedial action on its own. Whereas in case of explicit signaling, either the destination or the congestion detected node will explicitly send a packet or set a bit to the source so that it changes the rate at which it is transmitting. The congestion control in TCP, the policy is done based on 3 phases. One is slow start, then additive increase and multiplicative decrease. I had already explained about additive increase and multiplicative decreases. So slow start, this I made to explain. In case of slow start, what happens is initially the packet, because in case of additive increase, the rate at which it is transmitting, it be incremented by 1. Whereas in slow start, at the beginning of transmission, the rate will be little higher, say from 0 to 2 packets, then 4 packets, then 6 packets. It will not go indefinitely until the congestion occurs, but until a certain threshold. In this example, it is given as 16. So first, in case of slow start, the rate at which the packets are transmitted will be exponentially increased until it reaches a threshold, say 16. Yes. So the next phase, once it reaches the threshold, it will not increase the rate exponentially. Instead, it will increase linearly, which we call it as additive increase, 1 by 1. Yes. So if you see from 16, it is increased 16 to 18. Yes. So you can see during slow start, from 0 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16. But once that threshold is received, from it will not increase exponentially. Instead, it will increase 16 to 18, 18 to 20 to 22. How long it will increase? Until some congestion is detected. Once the congestion is detected, what happens? Multiplicative decrease happens. So say it is 20, immediately it will be reduced to 10. You can see the threshold as 10. It will be reduced to 10. Yes. So if even after reducing to 10, there is no response, still there is congestion, then once again it will come back to 0. Once the congestion is removed and the source starts getting acknowledgement from the receiver, then again slow start happens. It increases exponentially until the threshold. This threshold will be dynamically modified. Say once it reaches the threshold 10, then again additive increase happens. There is congestion, multiplicative decrease happens. Yes? So this is how dynamically the network itself changes the rate at which the segments are getting transmitted. We already saw what is congestion window and receiver window. The receiver window is the window size which is advertised by the receiver. If the window size is say 20,000 bytes and already there is 5,000 bytes which is still unprocessed in the receiver side, then the receiver will advertise the window size as 20,000 minus 5,000, which is 15,000 bytes. Yes. So the congestion window, as we have seen in this example, it will be changing. Yes. So suppose the current congestion size, window size is 10,000. The source will compare both the congestion window and receiver window, 10,000 and 15,000, whichever is minimum. So it will take 10,000 and send. If suppose the congestion window size is 20,000 and the window size advertised by the receiver is 15,000, then the sender will set the window as the minimum. Yes, so 15,000, which is advertised by the receiver. Then we'll see about quality of service. Quality of service is an internetworking issue. That is, when we have some traffic profile to be transmitted, we know that we want certain application. Suppose if it is a video conference, we understand that this particular application is delay sensitive. Yes, I cannot compromise on delay. Suppose if I'm speaking in a video conference, yes, so I cannot afford my voice to be transmitted after a delay. Yes. On the other hand, if I am transmitting a file or I am transmitting a mail, I cannot afford to lose even a single bit. Yes, so that is reliability sensitive application. I can afford a few seconds of delay. I can afford if the file arrives even after 5 seconds or 10 seconds, but I don't want even a single bit to be changed. On the other hand, if it is a delay sensitive application like voice application or video conferencing application, I cannot accept delay. Rather, I can accept a loss of few bits. If you don't hear my single word with clarity, you won't mind. But what if my second word comes after third word? It is not acceptable. That is the quality of service. So how the bandwidth is allocated, how traffic profiles are classified, it is based on the quality of service requirement by the receiver. So this depends upon the flow characteristics or the parameters that are significant for network performance. They are reliability, delay, jitter, and bandwidth. What is reliability? Whatever I transmit should be received at the receiver side with same reliability. I don't want any bit to be changed as in case of email or file transfer application. What is delay? Whatever I transmit should be received in the receiver's end within the acceptable time limit. I'm saying acceptable time limit. That means in case of delay, if suppose you are watching a cricket commentary, you are watching both in internet as well as in TV. Yes? So you can see that the same commentary when one person has hit a sixer, you can see it first in your internet connection and later in your cable TV. Yes? So that kind of delay is acceptable. But even though there is no difficulty in voice transmission, so that delay is acceptable. In case of jitter, what happens is the variation in delay. Yes, if there is constant variation in delay, it is acceptable. That is delay. Yes, every word spoken arrives 5 seconds, but the entire message so in turn arrives after 5 seconds. Even that delay can be accepted. But when I say jitter, that first word arrives after 5 seconds. The second word arrives after 7 seconds. The third word arrives after 1 second. That is called as jitter. That is not acceptable because it won't be coherent. Yes? So jitter cannot be acceptable in case of live video conferencing applications. Yes? So bandwidth. Yes? So bandwidth is very important parameter because you know whether guided or unguided medium, the bandwidth available is very limited. You cannot extend it. So how to achieve it? It can be achieved with the help of integrated service or differentiated service. As we have seen in the routing algorithm, the routing table updation was done using distance vector or link state. Yes, so though both approaches use different technique, we updated the routing table. But here integrated and differentiated service, they take two different approaches, but the aim is to provide QoS requirement for the traffic. You see, in integrated service, it is a flow-based QoS model. That means whatever you want to transmit, you will classify it as different flow. Yes, flow in the sense this is reliability sensitive application. This is delay sensitive application. This is bandwidth sensitive application. So for each type of traffic characteristic, you will create a flow and according to it, you will allocate the bandwidth. So that is about integrated service. One of the important protocols that uses this integrated service is the RSVP protocol, that is resource reservation protocol. You know what is the difference between unicasting, broadcasting and multicasting? So this RSVP protocol is a protocol which is used for multicasting. From source to all the multicast destinations, a multicast tree will be formed, and this integrated service is used to allocate the bandwidth. Yes, so that is the signaling. So you use signaling to specify what is the flow requirement. Flow spec, and in case of flow spec, you will specify your resource and traffic requirement, that we call it as R spec and T spec. R spec is resource specification such as buffer and bandwidth. T spec is traffic specification such as CBR, VBR or bursty traffic. Admission, to admit, these are all the terminologies which we are seeing, which are used in integrated service. In case of admission, we have to decide whether to admit or deny a service based on the commitment already done. As you have subscribed to your service provider for certain service, so you have subscribed only for voice call and SMS, you will not be able to get any other video application. So the admission is done based upon the commitment which has been done to you. So how it is done? Based on the service class. It is we have two main service class, namely guaranteed service and control load service. In case of guaranteed service, the real-time traffic will have the guaranteed end-to-end delay. So if you have subscribed to a particular service such as Airtel or Jio with some minimum requirement, so that was guaranteed for you. So sometimes during night time, even if you have subscribed for certain say 10 Gbps, there is chance that you can get more. But when the requirement is high for others, you will not get more. In case of control load service, it is guaranteed reliability. So whatever your application demands, that is, once you can demand the bandwidth itself, 10 Mbps or 20 Mbps. Otherwise, you can go for control load services. So for example, these days we have been using Zoom. So when you use Zoom, you don't specify this is the bandwidth, this is the type of application. Instead, you say you subscribe for Zoom for 1000 participants for this much 2 hours or 3 hours. That is control load service. RSVP protocol, as we have seen, it is a flow-based reservation protocol which is used for multicasting from a particular source to destination. This RSVP protocol uses 3 messages, namely path message, reservation message, and reservation merging. We'll see each of this from this diagram. Initially, a path message is sent from source to each of the destination. You can see, because the destination needs to send some information to the source, the destination will not know where the source is. So the source knows who are all its subscribers and therefore will send the path message to each of its receiver. What is the path message? That means RC3 can communicate with S1 through the router R3, R2 and R1, and RC1 can communicate with S1 through R2 and R1. So that is the path message which is being transmitted. Next is the reservation message. After receiving the path message, each of the receiver, it will send a reservation request. RC3 will send, I need 1 Mbps. RC2 will send, I need 2 Mbps. Again, RC3 will send, I need 10 Mbps. So that is the reservation request sent by the receiver to the source. So the third step is reservation merging. You will merge maximum requirements. Suppose all of you have Jio, subscribed to Jio. You have subscribed for 10 Mbps. Your neighbor would have subscribed for 1 Mbps. They will not change the cable characteristics between you and neighbor. Instead, what they do, they will grant you only your requirement, but still they will consolidate both your requirements and they will ensure that the maximum bandwidth requirement can be met in that particular path. If RC3 makes a request for 2 Mbps and RC2 makes a request for 1 Mbps, then R3 will make a request to R2 for maximum of these two, which is 2 Mbps. And similarly, R2 will compare the requirement from R3 and RC1, which is 3 and 2. Whichever is the maximum, it will request for R1, which is for 3 Mbps. And this is called as the reservation merging. We have seen three types of messages which is used in RSVP protocol. Next, we'll see about reservation styles. We have three different styles, namely wildcard filter, fixed filtered, and shared explicit filter. In case of wildcard filter, the single reservation is made for all the senders based on the largest request. So as seen in the previous example, one asked for 2 and another asked for 5 Mbps. The maximum will be the request sent. In case of fixed filter, n different reservation for n different flow will be made as a request. That is for data traffic, it will claim for 5 Mbps. Another receiver makes a video traffic. For video traffic, it will make another request. Yes, so that is the fixed filter. Yes, so it will be fixed. Yes, so for each of the receiver. In case of shared explicit style, 100 Mbps will be requested and it will be shared among all the receivers. So that is shared explicit filter. So the disadvantage of this integrated service is every request has to be processed by the router and it has to take some decision. So the scalability is very difficult. Only if the protocol makes the decision on its own, then it is flexible and scalable. Whereas in this case, you see every time it has to be decision has to be taken based upon the request. Therefore, it is not scalable. So next we will see about differentiated service. As we have seen, this protocol works automatically based upon the certain protocols which are predefined. Yes. So this differentiated service, whatever is the requirement will be set in a field which is called as differentiated service field bit. Yeah? So in IPv4 we saw this field. So this field will be set as 1. Yeah? So if you can recollect, in IPv4 we saw the type of service field which can be set either as high reliable or delay sensitive or high throughput. Yeah? So that is the differentiated service. It's a class-based service model depending upon your service class. Service class is type of application. You can see here, I told you this protocol should work on its own. Yes? So whatever is the requirement, what is the requirement from everyone, what is the bandwidth availability, how to check if they are within the prescribed norms. Yeah? So if you have booked for 10 Mbps and you are making use of 10 Gbps data, it cannot be allowed. So how it is done? Yes, for that we have got different protocols or different mechanisms which are used in differentiated service. The first one is the traffic conditioner. What is the job of a traffic conditioner? Whenever an input is received, the classifier will classify the type of service. What is the type of service? Remember, we have set in each packet the type of service field as a high reliable or a low delay. Yes? So it will see that DS field and will classify the service class. Yes, this meter will measure. Yes, so whether if you have booked for 10 Gbps, whether you are using 10 Gbps or exceeding. Marker, it will mark the service class. Yes? So if it is high reliable or low delay. Yes? So once the packet comes, the classifier will classify and give it to marker. The marker will mark the type of service, and then the shaper or dropper will refer whether it can be acceptable or not. Yes? So if the service cannot be provided, it will be dropped. Yes. So if you have booked for a service and you are asking for that service, the shaper will allocate such service to you and then it will send. So at each phase the meter will counter check, yes, so what is the service you have subscribed to and whether your request falls within that particular norm. So that is how the traffic conditioner works. Yes. So the same thing is shown here in an elaborate manner. You can see the packets are coming which are ready for transmission. Then it is given to the classifier. What is the job of the classifier? It will check whether the packets in a traffic stream are based upon the content in its IP header. Remember the type of service field. Then it gives to the marker. The marker will set the DS field. Okay, you have subscribed to this service and your application is, say, you have subscribed for Zoom service. Yes, and now you are transmitting a live video conference. So the marker will say, yes, you have subscribed to the service and the packet it is receiving is the video traffic. So what the marker will do, will mark the DS field in your packet according to your service request as low delay. Yes. So and then will give it to the shaper or dropper. If your service could be accepted, yes, so it will proceed to shaper. Otherwise the dropper will drop the packet and will make a new request. Yes, the shaper will shape according to the request made and available provision or resources. The shaper will delay some or all the packets in the traffic stream in order to bring the stream in compliance with the traffic profile which you have subscribed already. Yes, so the dropper will discard some or all the packets in a traffic stream if it is not in concurrence. And in every stage the meter keeps checking whether you are going in the correct direction according to your subscribed norm. So this is about differentiated service and integrated service. We have seen what is congestion control, how congestion control can be avoided or prevented. So we have seen about transport layer. What are the functions of the transport layer? Transport layer is the first end-to-end layer. The end point in transport layer is the socket, which consists of the IP address and the port address. Every process in the transport layer, it is identified with the help of port number. Then we saw flow control mechanisms in transport layer, error control mechanisms in transport layer. In flow control mechanism, we saw what is the receiver window and congestion window and how it is getting adjusted and how the source will decide on how much traffic it has to send. So the error control mechanism in transport layer is same as that of in data link layer. Then the important concept we have seen in transport layer is about congestion control. So how congestion is detected and how congestion is avoided, what are the mechanisms we use, and finally we saw about the integrated service and differentiated services, so how they operate.